Start with these 11 companies that have been put up for sale. Can you just give us a sense of where we are, at what stage are we in the process of selling these companies?
Okay, for the assets being privatized by the government, it's the 17 generation and distribution companies. Currently, it's at the stage where the advisors to BP who advise on the sale of those assets are being selected. So a short list of 6 have been announced. They are receiving RFPs now, and in the next 5 weeks, they should have responded to the RFPs.
No, but beyond that, I think a lot more still has to be done to those companies, because these are companies that I don't think even have a board, do they?
No, so in terms of operational issues, I mean, the federal government is committed to putting all those structures in place that are needed to make a sale happen. So the board of directors probably getting an audit done, properly separating out the assets and liabilities of each company, and having something to put forward to the buyers. Because without that, it's unlikely that the assets will be sold at any significant value.
Now, these are companies that I imagine have huge liabilities, more so with regards to their staff remunerations that are owed and stuff like that. Is there any structure in the whole process that might mitigate the risk to investors in these companies?
Well, the government has created a company called Nigerian Electricity Liability Management Company that is supposed to absorb most of those liabilities. And I think the president announced 57 billion naira or so that has been released to this company. So it's supposed to pay off most of those liabilities, gratuities, pensions, and other things for the power companies, PHTN staff that might be redundant from this whole process.
Okay, so that's out of the way. Now let's take a step back and look at attempts to privatize possibly even these companies in the past. And over the last 10 years, we've seen the government with a very comprehensive privatization program, which started quite well, but I think over time the pace of transactions has obviously slowed down. What would you say are the main problems that have stopped the government from completing many of these transactions up to now?
Well, I think, quite a number of companies have been privatized, probably about 400. So in terms of the easy ones or the more viable ones have probably already gone. Many of those left behind are those that had significant policy or regulatory hurdles to go through, like those in the oil and gas sector. Without all the deregulation and PIB and some of those things being done, it's a bit hard to sell those companies. Same thing for the power sector. So some of those.
What were the issues there for the power sector? Why haven't we been able to do a deal before now?
Well, I mean, the Act came in 2005.
So that wasn't even in place?
It wasn't in place, and then it was suspended when the Yar'Adua government came in terms of implementation. So now it's back on track.
Right.
So now that it's back on track and there's a clear roadmap on how to offload these assets, it's very likely that that can be achieved by June next year.
And then let's take a look at what else is up for sales. Obviously, we know about these power companies. What else is the government trying to sell right now?
Well, I mean, there's an ITEL transaction that's still ongoing. There are a number of companies that the government is ready to sell down 49% because they had initially sold 51% to a core investor. So companies like Sky Power Aviation, Nikon, Nigerian Re fall into that category, probably also Transcorp Hilton. Then obviously there are a bit more difficult ones around the oil and gas sector, which probably cannot be done till the PIB is passed.
And then looking at those deals that have not been done, we've seen a slowdown, obviously, in the process, like I mentioned. What in plotting a successful conclusion of these programs up to going forward now, what do you think are the critical things that need to happen, particularly with these power companies?
Well, I think it's quite clear. One part of the equation is obviously the BPE, and obviously
there has been some restructuring in the BPE, am I right?
Yes, well, there's a new director general.
Organized.
Yes, there's a new director general, and my understanding is that they're now organized more along industry lines. So they have different groups who handle different industry transactions, so can actually do multiple transactions at once.
That's not how it was in the past, was it?
I don't believe so. So obviously, and again, when you bear in mind that the biggest policy initiative of this government between now and the end of the government next year is power, and that heavily relies on BP executing. So obviously there's a lot of confidence in this new government, in the current structure and in the leadership of the BP as constituted today.
And then finally, where does the National Council of Privatization come into the equation? We know BP is like the operational vehicle for privatization, but where does the NCP come into all this?
Well, I believe NCP more or less ratifies sale transactions that BP executes, but BP is the most critical part of the equation. They actually do the heavy lifting to execute these transactions.